Controversy, chaos, catastrophe. Claressa Shields just walked into a BET Awards after post-caption complaint like she was filing a federal case, and I need you to sit with that sentence for a second. Because the woman who spent the entire last year calling everybody else a snitch just personally reached out to a network to get a caption edited off the internet, and that is not the biggest thing that happened this week. That is the third biggest thing that happened this week. The two-time undisputed champion turned self-appointed queen of women's boxing is publicly announcing on Hot 107.9 that she is having a baby next year with a man who is still, at the time of this recording, legally married to Remy Ma. And the radio host asked the question that the entire culture has been thinking, which is, does Papoose actually know he is having a baby next year? And the man sitting 3 feet away from her had to lean into a microphone and mumble the word absolutely like a hostage, confirming proof of life. Everything you thought you understood about the Claressa Shields brand, the Flint fighter narrative, the GWAT self-mythology, the gold love aesthetic, every single frame of that story has been operating on the wrong terms. Because the real story is not that Claressa Shields is embarrassing herself. The real story is that Claressa Shields is now systematically dismantling her own leverage in an industry where women fighters have almost none to begin with. And when we get to the DAZN admin tweet section later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, you are going to understand why the same week she snitched to bet is the same week the platform that is supposed to be promoting her next fight was posting the words sexy and thick from their verified account with almost 900,000 followers. And those two events are not two stories, they are the same story, and nobody has connected those dots yet. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me set the table properly, because if you are new to this channel or new to this specific situation, I need you to understand the full weight of what we are watching in real time. Claressa Shields is not a small name in boxing. She is objectively the most decorated female boxer of this generation, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, undisputed champion in 3 different weight classes. The woman who fought Frankhon Cruz-DAZN 4 times between the amateurs and the pros. The woman who signed a reported multi-million-dollar deal with Win Records. The woman whose brand was supposed to be built on the Flint underdog story, the discipline, the grind, the gold. That was the pitch. That was the package. That was the narrative that every promoter, every network, every sponsor was buying into when they wrote the checks. And what has happened over the last 12 months is a slow motion, publicly documented, receipt-heavy demolition of that entire package, and she is the one holding the wrecking ball. The stakes here are not just personal, and this is where I need everybody watching to lock in, because it is very easy to look at this situation and go, oh, this is just messy celebrity gossip. One boxer says wild things on a radio show. Who cares? That is the surface red, and the surface red is wrong. The stakes are financial, because she reportedly walked into a Win Records deal with a signing bonus in the 7 figures, and an overall package that has been reported north of $8 million, and every single embarrassing moment. Every viral clip of her boyfriend looking like the Terminator at an awards show, every I am sexy and thick tweet, every I forced him to come, every does he know he is having a baby, all of that erodes the market value of the brand that deal was built on. The stakes are cultural, because women's boxing has spent decades trying to be taken seriously. Laila Ali carried that torch, Christy Martin carried that torch, and Wolf carried that torch. And the person now standing in that lineage is beefing with Laila Ali of all people, dissing boxing royalty, calling the daughter of Muhammad Ali a cloud chaser. And every fan who watches that has to sit with what that says about who is now representing this sport at the top. The stakes are reputational, because the same woman who posted that snitching meme with Alicia Baumgartner's face on it is now the woman who personally emailed BET to complain about a caption. And the internet does not forget that kind of hypocrisy. The internet catalogs it, screenshots it, and drags it back out every single time you say something about somebody else. And the stakes are personal in a way that has nothing to do with money, because she is publicly announcing she wants to have a baby with a man who has a tattoo of another woman still visible on his forearm. A man who was married for 2 decades to a woman who was on national television with him talking about having another baby together right before the marriage allegedly fell apart. And the question I keep coming back to, and the question this entire video is going to answer, is why is Claressa Shields choosing this, and who benefits when she keeps choosing this? Because it is not her. The first piece of evidence I need to walk you through, and this one is the one that is publicly viewable right now if you go to X and scroll through the DAZN boxing account, is the tweet that says Claressa Shields is so sexy and thick. coming from the verified DAZN boxing account with a nearly 900,000 follower reach, and this thing pulled over 2 million views in a matter of hours before anybody could figure out what was going on. Now on the surface, this looks like an account got hacked, or an intern went rogue, or some poor social media manager is about to be filed under former employees. That is not what happened. What happened, as Claressa herself later confirmed on her own timeline, is that DAZN handed her the keys to their social media account and let her tweet as an admin, and the tweets she chose to send from a boxing platform's verified account. The tweets she thought represented her value to that partnership were about how sexy and thick she was. Stop and process that for a second. This is a business relationship. This is a promotional platform. This is the platform that is supposed to be selling your next fight card to the public. And when they handed you the wheel, the first thing you thought to type was a compliment about your own body from a corporate account with almost 1 million followers. That is not marketing. That is not brand building. That is not selling a fight. That is someone with zero understanding of how a professional partnership works, using a verified corporate microphone to talk to herself about herself. The second piece of evidence, and this one is the one that has been running on repeat across every hip-hop and sports blog in the last week, is the Hot 100 7.9 interview clip where Claressa announces she is having a baby next year with Papoose sitting right next to her. Roll that clip in your head. She says, "I am having a baby next year." The host, who I have to give some credit to because she asked what everybody in the culture was thinking, turns to Papoose and says, "And does Pap know he is having a baby next year? Pap, you know you are having a baby next year." And this is where you can see Claressa's whole face reset in real time, because the question landed the way the question was supposed to land, which is as a public verification check on whether this couple actually operates as a couple. And Papoose, 40-something years old, sitting on a radio microphone that the entire hip-hop internet is going to hear, leans in and mumbles absolutely, and then Claressa has to jump in and cover for him and explain that he asked her to have a baby. And by the way, the timeline of that has now been publicly moved twice, because the original claim was a baby at 30, then it was a baby in 2026. And now on this radio interview, it is a baby in 2027, because she wants to fight a few more girls. First, the third piece of surface evidence is the BET Awards walk-in itself, which is still living on Instagram right now, still living on TikTok right now, still living on every Shade Room repost that has hit your feed in the last 2 weeks. The video is Claressa walking and singing gospel music, holding up her phone, dancing like a kid on the way to the candy store, and Papoose walking next to her with his shoulders back and his jaw locked, looking like he is being escorted to a hearing, not to an award show. The Shade Room posted the clip. Instagram commenters posted the clip. TikTok remixed the clip. Facebook pages picked it up. And the caption BT originally used, and this is documented because multiple content creators, including the one you are watching me reference right now, archived the original, was something to the effect of "When you drag your man to the function. When you move, he move." That caption existed. It was on the official BET post. And it was later changed, and we now know why it was later changed, which is our fourth piece of surface evidence, and it is the one that ties everything together. Claressa Shields, on Hot 100 7.9 on air, on tape, said the words "we reached out to them and told them that was a whack caption." She said it in her own voice, on her own interview. She confirmed that she personally contacted BET over a caption that hurt her feelings and got them to edit it. And this is the same woman who spent all of last year telling everybody she was from Flint. She did not care about opinions. She was strong-minded. She was not a snitch. She was not a police ad chick. Every one of those self-descriptions collapsed the moment she picked up the phone or emailed a network to complain about a caption on a photo of her walking into their event. And oh, do I have more for you. The Papoose fans, the Claressa loyalists, the people who have been in the comments defending Gold Love for the last year, you are not going to like this next part. Because this next part is where the evidence stops being about clips and starts being about the pattern. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it, and when we get to the industry breakdown a little bit later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, you're going to see that everything we just covered is only the surface of what has actually been happening behind the scenes with the deal, the divorce timeline, the label politics, and the reason this whole story feels like it is being played out on the wrong stage on purpose. Now let me walk you through the cultural evidence, which is the stuff that is not on Complex, not on TMZ, not on the front page of Rolling Stone. The stuff you have to actually be plugged into the boxing world and the hip-hop world at the same time to properly read. Piece 1 is the Laila Ali situation, which is not a beef in the traditional sense, it is a self-inflicted wound. Laila Ali came into Claressa's orbit years ago, and by every credible account, including Claressa's own earlier interviews before this all went south, Laila was trying to mentor her, trying to show her how to brand herself, trying to guide her through the pitfalls that Laila herself dealt with as the daughter of the most iconic name in boxing history. That is not a rivalry. That is an older stateswoman of the sport trying to help. And what did Claressa do with that mentorship? She turned on Laila, called her a cloud chaser, invoked her name publicly for clout, and turned the daughter of Muhammad Ali into a punchline in her own promotional cycle. The Griot ran a piece on this beef in late October. Breakfast Club had her on to talk about it. She pulled receipts. Laila pulled receipts. And here is the thing that I want everybody watching to understand about the cultural cost of that decision. The boxing establishment protects its own, and the boxing establishment protects the Ali name above almost any other name in the sport. And when you pick that fight publicly, you do not just lose one relationship, you lose the informal network of veterans, promoters, cornermen, and old-school analysts who talk to each other in the ecosystem you need to succeed in. That is a cultural mistake with financial consequences. Piece 2 is the Remy Ma situation, and I want to be very careful here because this is where the story gets genuinely nuanced. Remy Ma and Papoose were the black love couple. Not a black love couple. The black love couple. 2 decades of documented public affection. A whole love and hip-hop storyline that was built around it. Reality show moments where they were talking about having another baby together right before the separation. And Remy has since made it very clear, in her own words on her own platforms, that she is completely over it, that she has moved on. But the cultural community, the fanbase that watched that relationship for 20 years, has not moved on, and every time Claressa announces on a radio show that she is having a baby with Papoose while Papoose is still legally married to Remy Ma, that community relitigates the whole thing on the timeline. And the sentiment is not neutral. The sentiment, if you actually scroll the comments on the Yahoo Entertainment article about Claressa wanting to surprise Papoose with a baby, if you scroll the Instagram reels about it, if you look at the reposts on the Shadow League, the sentiment is overwhelmingly that this is delusional, that he is almost 50, that the divorce is not finalized, that she is rushing a family for a man who has not even legally closed the previous family. That is not one commenter. That is the consensus. Piece 3 is the DJ Vlad interview with Papoose, which I need everybody to actually watch because it is the single most damaging thing that has happened to Gold Love, and Papoose himself is the one who did the damage. In an uncut long-form interview with Vlad, Papoose was asked directly about the tattoo, about the engagement, about the ring, about all the things Claressa had been publicly claiming about their relationship, and his answer, in his own voice, was some version of no, never a ring, absolutely not. We might have bought some gifts, but a ring, no. That is not a subtle contradiction. That is a public dismissal of a claim his own girlfriend had been repeating in interviews and on live streams for months. And here is the cultural weight of that. Papoose is not doing that by accident. Papoose has been in this industry for over 20 years. He knows exactly what a Vlad interview is. He knows exactly what a soundbite is. And he chose to sit across from that camera and tell the world that the ring narrative Claressa had been selling was not real. That is a man protecting his own optionality. That is a man leaving a door open. That is a man who does not want to be locked into the story his partner is publicly building around him. Piece 4 is the BET aftermath itself, because after the awards where Aya Wilson won Sportswoman of the Year, Papoose went on his own social platforms and started tagging Nas, tagging Lauryn Hill, tagging Lizzo, tagging the BET Awards, and posting captions about why do they keep robbing Claressa Shields, and then in the same post he pivoted to check out my music, and this is Instagram receipts, this is publicly viewable, this is not a leak. So on one hand Claressa gives a radio interview 2 weeks later and says she did not care, she had fun at the BET Awards, she was not tripping. And on the other hand her own boyfriend, the person closest to her, was publicly campaigning as if she was robbed. Those two positions cannot both be true. Either the couple was upset and campaigning, or the couple was not upset and did not care. And when a fanbase catches you contradicting your own household on the timeline, you lose the last thing you had left in a controversy cycle, which is a coherent narrative. Now some of you watching are going to say, and I want to acknowledge this because I do believe in giving the counterargument its moment, some of you are going to say, hey, maybe Claressa is just being open, maybe she is just being real about wanting a baby. Maybe she is just having fun on social media. Maybe the media is picking on her because she is a black woman in a male-dominated sport, and maybe I am being too hard. Fine. Sit with that argument. Then look at the receipts. Look at the DAZN admin tweets she personally sent. Look at the timeline shifts on the baby claim. Look at the BET caption complaint she confirmed on tape. Look at the snitching meme she posted about Alicia Baumgardner while doing the exact same behavior herself. That is not media picking on her. That is her, in her own voice, on her own accounts, in her own interviews, generating every single piece of this evidence herself. The media did not force her to reach out to BET. The media did not force her to tweet from DAZN's account about her own body. The media did not write the timeline of the baby announcement. She did all of it. And the fact that she did all of it herself is the exact reason the pattern is undeniable, and the exact reason we now have to shift gears from what is happening on camera to what is happening in the rooms nobody is showing you. Because here is where we stop talking about clips and start talking about structure. Everything you have just watched me walk through, the DAZN tweet, the baby announcement, the BET caption complaint, the Laila Ali fallout, the Remy Ma timeline, the Papoose interview contradictions, every single one of those events is a symptom, and the disease is a business model. And this is the part of the video where the average commentary channel stops, because the average commentary channel does not know how the business works. So let me walk you through 3 separate systemic angles that all lead back to the same conclusion. The first systemic angle is the Win Records deal itself. Claressa Shields signed a reported multi-million-dollar deal with Win Records, and the exact structure of that deal has not been publicly disclosed in full detail, but based on how these hybrid entertainment athlete crossover deals are typically constructed. And I am telling you this because I have paid attention to how these deals work in the industry over the last decade. The structure almost always includes a signing bonus, a per-fight or per-project payment schedule, a promotional obligation tied to content output, and a recoupment clause that says the label recoups its investment before the artist sees back-end money. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is standard industry structure. And what that means in practical terms is that every viral moment, every social media post, every radio interview, every award show appearance is not just personal expression, it is contractually incentivized promotional content. When you sign a deal like that, you are essentially agreeing to be a content machine, and the label does not care whether the content is dignified or embarrassing. They only care whether the content generates attention. Attention converts to streams, streams convert to revenue, revenue offsets the advance. So when you look at Claressa Shields posting increasingly wild content, announcing babies, tweeting from DAZN accounts, complaining to BET about captions, you have to ask yourself, is this a woman losing control? Or is this a woman being encouraged by the people who cut her check to generate exactly this kind of engagement? And I do not think the answer is comfortable for anybody who is invested in the Flint underdog narrative, because the Flint underdog narrative does not survive a content machine. The two are structurally incompatible. The second systemic angle is the promotional infrastructure of women's boxing itself, and this is where it gets even more uncomfortable. Women's boxing does not have the same television deals, the same purse structures, the same pay-per-view leverage that men's boxing has. Every serious observer of the sport knows this. So when a woman fighter of Claressa Shields' caliber, undisputed in multiple weight classes, Olympic pedigree, wants to command the kind of money that would justify her calling everybody else broke, she has to build that value through something other than pure boxing revenue, because pure boxing revenue is not there yet in the women's side of the sport. What she has to build is a media brand, a social brand, a couples brand, a controversy brand. Whatever kind of brand keeps her in the algorithm. And so the incentive structure of the sport itself, not just her label, is pushing her toward exactly the kind of content first, controversy heavy, personality forward positioning that makes her look ridiculous, but keeps her name on the timeline. When DAZN, her broadcast partner, is tweeting she is sexy and thick from a corporate account, that is not a mistake in the traditional sense. That is DAZN understanding what the current business model of women's boxing actually rewards. Attention. Not dignity. Attention. And they're pulling that lever because that is the lever the current structure gives them to pull. The third systemic angle is the divorce situation, and I want to be extremely careful with how I frame this, because it is a legal matter and I am not the finder of fact. But it has been publicly reported and it has been publicly acknowledged by multiple outlets, including the Facebook post I referenced earlier from Real Epic Shade discussing the Remy Ma and Papoose divorce timeline, that as of the time of this recording the divorce has not moved as quickly as one might expect if both parties were fully aligned on getting it done. And I want to sit with what that means, because in the culture, when a marriage is publicly ending and both parties want it ended, the paperwork moves. When the paperwork does not move, one of two things is usually true. Either one party is dragging their feet for financial or emotional reasons, or the situation is more complicated than the public narrative is presenting. And in either case, the person who is publicly announcing she is having a baby with the still married party is exposing herself to a level of legal, financial, and reputational risk that nobody in her corner is apparently advising her against. That is a leadership failure inside her camp. That is a management failure. That is a public relations failure. And when we start looking at all three of these systemic angles together, the label incentive structure pushing her toward controversy content, the women's boxing business model rewarding attention over dignity, and the divorce timeline creating a legal exposure her team should be protecting her from, you start to see that Claressa Shields is not a woman falling apart in public. Claressa Shields is a woman whose entire infrastructure is optimized for her to fall apart in public because falling apart in public is what generates the numbers that justify the deal. And here is the reveal. The thing I've been building toward this entire video, the thing I need every single person watching to sit with, because this is the moment where the story stops being about one boxer and starts being about the machine. The reason Claressa Shields is behaving the way she is behaving right now, the reason every controversy escalates instead of de-escalates, the reason her own boyfriend contradicts her on Vlad while she is announcing babies on Hot 107.9, the reason DAZN is tweeting sexy and thick from a corporate account, the reason BT is captioning drag your man to the function, the reason every single one of these institutions is treating a two-time Olympic gold medalist like she is a reality show cast member and not a decorated athlete, is that at some point in the last 12 to 18 months, the entire ecosystem around Claressa Shields collectively agreed, whether consciously or not, that she is worth more as a spectacle than she is worth as a champion. And once that agreement is made behind the scenes, every subsequent business decision falls in line with that agreement. Her label pushes controversy content because controversy content converts. Her broadcast partner tweets about her body because bodies get impressions. The awards show captions her walk-in with a drag your man joke because that caption gets shared. The radio host asks, does Pap know he is having a baby, because that question gets clipped. Everybody in the room profits when the champion becomes the spectacle, and nobody in the room profits from protecting her dignity, so nobody in the room protects her dignity. And the most catastrophic part of all of this is that she does not appear to see it happening. She thinks she is winning. She thinks the attention is validation. She thinks calling other people broke while sitting in a Corvette is a flex. She thinks announcing a baby on a radio show is a power move. She thinks reaching out to bet over a caption is standing up for herself. But every single one of those decisions is her walking further into the trap the industry set for her, and the trap is designed so she never realizes she is in it. Because the moment she realizes, the moment she pulls back, the moment she stops generating the controversy content, the value proposition of the deal collapses, and everybody around her stops eating. So they will not tell her. Her management will not tell her. Her label will not tell her. Papoose, who has his own reasons for staying quiet, will not tell her. And so the spiral continues, publicly, in real time, and we watch it happen while she calls us broke and miserable for pointing it out. That is the actual story. That is the systemic truth underneath the Hot 107.9 clip. That is the reason none of this is going to stop until either the deal cycle ends or she chooses, on her own, to opt out of a system that has already decided her worth for her. And in the middle of all of that, the person who has quietly kept her dignity intact, the person who has not needed a radio show to announce anything, the person who has not needed a corporate account to tweet about her own body, is the version of Claressa Shields that showed up in Flint, that trained with quiet discipline, that walked into the Olympics in 2012 and won gold at 17 years old, and then walked back in and did it again in 2016 to become the first American boxer of any gender to win back-to-back Olympic gold in the history of the sport. That woman is still in there. That woman is still the greatest technical female fighter of her generation. That woman is why any of us are talking about Claressa Shields at all. And when you look at how the other women in this ecosystem are conducting themselves in comparison, you see the contrast in real time. Aya Wilson, who just won Sportswoman of the Year, is out here being MVP, winning championships, letting the accolades speak for themselves without needing a corporate Twitter account to compliment her body. Laila Ali, whatever you think of the current beef, spent 2 decades building a legacy off her father's name without ever needing to tear down a younger fighter to do it. Remy Ma, whatever you think of her personally, sat on a public divorce and did not go on radio shows announcing pregnancies with somebody else's husband. One version of the story is people carrying themselves with the composure their platform requires. The other version of the story is a woman with more gold medals than most rooms she walks into, dismantling her own legacy in exchange for algorithm points. And the tragedy is that the first version and the second version are the same person. Claressa Shields the athlete is one of the greatest ever to lace them up. Claressa Shields the brand is a 5-alarm fire being fueled by the people who claim to represent her. The evidence in this video, all of it, every single clip and every single receipt, is not an argument that she is a bad person. It is an argument that she is a great fighter being systemically encouraged to behave like a bad person because her handlers profit when she does. And the moment she or somebody in her corner sees that clearly is the moment the arc bends back the right way. Until then, the person still winning is the one who kept her mouth shut, kept her focus locked, and let the work do the talking. And here's why this is only the start. 2 things are coming that everybody watching this video needs to be tracking. The first is her next fight card, which DAZN is airing. The same DAZN whose corporate account just tweeted about how sexy and thick she is. And I need you to watch how the promotional cycle for that card is structured, because the promotional cycle is going to tell you everything you need to know about whether her camp has learned anything from the last month or whether they're going to double down on the controversy content machine. If the promo is dignified, focused on the sport, focused on the opponent, then somebody in her corner is course-correcting. If the promo is more clips of her calling other fighters broke, more moments of her with Papoose looking hostage adjacent, more baby announcements, then you know the machine is still driving and the champion is still in the passenger seat. The second thing to track is the divorce filing itself, because if the paperwork moves in the next few months, this whole gold love narrative gets a clean slate, and if the paperwork does not move, then every subsequent interview she gives about babies and marriage and wedding plans becomes even more legally and reputationally exposed than it already is. Both of these developments are coming. Both of them are trackable in public. Both of them will define whether the next chapter of the Claressa Shields story is a redemption arc or a continuation of the demolition, and the only way you are not going to miss the breakdown of either of them is to be subscribed to this channel right now. Because I am covering every angle of this as it unfolds. Drop your take on the baby announcement in the comments. Tell me whether you think DAZN handing her the admin login was intentional or a mistake, and then click the next video. Because the one you need to watch immediately after this one is my full breakdown on why Papoose himself may be the biggest loser in this entire situation. The deal he lost, the credibility he burned, the 20-year brand he traded for a viral moment, and the one interview he gave that already proved he knows exactly what he did. That video is going to shift how you see this whole couple. Do not stop here. Watch that one next. We unpacked